this gets into my like why I believe. So this is why never sell is confusing. Like I was literally just talking to a friend earlier this morning, and they were like, yeah, they used Bitcoin to buy their house, and I was like, dude, that's a win. That is an on paper win. They made smart decisions, pulled forward their savings, were able to accomplish something. And I think up to this point, like Bitcoin, like influencers have not done a great job of like celebrating that win. Like we haven't done a great job of talking about that, which I think is, and I don't know where that came from. Like I don't know where that came from, but I'm glad to see that beginning to like crack a little bit, because there's not going to be a day where the switch flips. It's going to be gradual. Every single person is hitting that point every day where like Bitcoin, my wife and I have already we are at a way different place today than we would have if we were using fiat money for the last 10 years, period. Like I've already experienced that in my life for real every single day, the power of using this money instead of fiat money. And so I'm no longer waiting for this classic time in the future or whatever. Like it's already just happening. And every paycheck is a new opportunity to choose which bucket am I choosing to participate in.
Yep. I think every minute of every day is your choice of, do you want to spend time watching Netflix or do you want to spend time reading a book? Do you want to spend time watching the news, or do you want to spend time learning and adding value to the world? Like I feel like every single minute of the day where we make that decision of where do we want to spend our time. And that was one of the things I took away from Jeff Booth was, that's something that we as Bitcoiners have to be thinking about. It's not just in November once every 4 years you go vote. You vote every single day with your time, your energy, and where you're buying things from. So yeah, I completely agree with both points there. And I think that if we are ever to get to a Bitcoin standard where Michael Saylor has to sell some of his 500,000 Bitcoin, I think he's going to have to spend much less of it at that point, like almost in an amount that they won't even notice. Because when we get to a point where people are demanding to be paid in Bitcoin, think about the value of that. That's kind of one of the major lags right now, is that not only are people trading their money for it, but they're not interested in actually accepting it for the value that they add to the world. But when that happens, whether it's through force or just because there's no other options, like the value of each Bitcoin is just going to be extraordinary. And so when you think about what that 500,000 Bitcoin has today in terms of purchasing power and leverage, imagine that at that point. Like he might have to spend 1 million sats for his whole team in a year. So yes, he's going to have to spend it.
That's why I like the word influence. Yeah, that's why I like the word influence. Because at that point, it's not even about like, what are you buying or paying for? It's like, no, like, what are you making happen in the world?
Yep. 100%. And when you think about it like that, in terms of a guy like Michael Saylor, who's clearly understands where this is going, he sees it as leverage like I do too. Like one of the big reasons I'm buying so much Bitcoin right now is not just to hold on to it forever. I plan on leveraging it in the future through my business, for my family. I want things to get cheaper, but I also understand that there are going to be a ton of AI agents and opportunity within that space where I can pay them in Bitcoin. And when that happens, I'm going to have to spend a lot less Bitcoin versus somebody who's just getting into Bitcoin at that point. So I'm essentially buying future leverage for that. Plus, I'm going to be able to recruit the best talent in the world, because if you can entice people and say, hey, do you want to go work for this company and earn dollars, or come work for me and earn Bitcoin? At that point, you're going to get access to the best talent on the planet, and it's just going to snowball. That's why I love the flywheel, because that's exactly what they're doing at MicroStrategy right now in every aspect of it.
Yeah, they're definitely doing that, and I agree with you. They're going to be able to use Bitcoin to just hire the best talent. That's the leverage that they're going to have, because they're going to be able to find people from around the world who don't have Bitcoin, who want Bitcoin, who discover Bitcoin. Over the next 20, 30 years, there's going to be so many people who discover Bitcoin for the first time. People think, 95% of the world has heard about Bitcoin, they just don't want it. No, they haven't. I would say 95% of the world hasn't really touched Bitcoin. They just hear it as something that's very complicated. I don't really need this. I don't want this. I don't care about it. They just at some point, like we're going to be able to buy houses for 1 million sats. We're going to be able to buy at some point I would say by 2030. I want to get a new car at some point. I think I'm going to be able to get a new car for 0.1 Bitcoin. Today it'll cost you 0.5, 0.6. At that point, 0.1, 0.05, 5 million satoshis for a car. I'm okay with that.
Future leverage.
Exactly.
On that note, what we talked about retirement and millennials wanting to retire. What age do you guys think you're going to be able to retire? Not retire, but like work on your own terms fully.
Mhm.
I'm kind of doing that now. Not that I have the finances for it, but I feel like it's mainly because my wife has that stable income. I don't know if she ever does want to quit, but at some point I do think that my work, the stuff that I'm doing on YouTube, will be generating enough revenue to cover our expenses at all times. And I do this, I actually like doing it. So to me, it's not even work. I mean, I would never, if I can make money from making YouTube videos and adding value to people's day, then why not? I would do it forever if I could.
Yeah. Yeah. I would, yeah, if I was going to put a number on it, like, I think like I'm 32, like I'm 33 right now. I think like mid 40s. I think pre 50, I'm going to transition to a different phase of life for sure.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same. I would probably be disappointed if I was like forced to work past the age of 45, which is in about, I don't know, 9 years from now. That's 2 full Bitcoin cycles. That's a lot more countries coming into this thing. I think the world's going to look completely different at that point.
Yeah.
I think Bitcoin will be kind of like whether everybody really understands it or not, it's going to be the asset that everybody wants. I mean, honestly, like I don't think we're too far away from that not in terms of like the general population understanding that, but in terms of like the biggest pools of capital understanding that. And that's what really moves the needle here. It's not that, the guy who doesn't have a whole lot of savings when he decides to buy Bitcoin, it's good, obviously, but it's not going to move the needle. But I do think in the next, couple cycles, it's going to be a pretty big deal here. So I would say about the same.
I have 2 points. So the first
yeah,
thing,
go ahead, Rajat.
by the time you're 45, 99% of the Bitcoin is going to be mined.
That's another part
So
of it
that's
too.
huge. That's crazy. And then the second thing is, even when people are, the majority of the world is never going to really learn about Bitcoin. I think I think there's a lot of people right now who know more about Bitcoin than the majority of the world will ever know. We've probably forgotten more about Bitcoin than the average person will know. The average person has no idea what they're doing. They don't really care. But the thing is, I think they're going to be forced into it. I think they're going to be just like Visa. Who understands how Visa works? Who understands how fiat works? Really, nobody.
Exactly.
Maybe a very small number of people. So what's going to happen is they're going to get screwed over by financial institutions. Financial institutions are going to hold on to Bitcoin. They're going to tell you, oh, you have a savings account where you get a 10% annual return in terms of US dollars. But the financial institution is going to be getting 30, 40, 50%. And it's like that. It's like that in anything, right? You have information asymmetry. The people who know what's going on can easily take advantage of everybody else. Like, for example, all of us right now, we could be promoting some random shitcoin, and we can promote it to everybody who's listening to this, and we could make hundreds of thousands of dollars in minutes. I guarantee you that could happen. I have 100,000 followers on Twitter. I can scam the shit out of them, right? But that's the thing. I don't want to. My goal is to help people. My goal is to make sure that people actually get to where they want to be at some point. And the people who actually follow our content, the people who follow Brian, people who follow Jor, I think we're going to do really well regardless of whether we scam people, right? If we don't scam people, we're probably going to get much further. I think the people in our audience are probably going to want to work with us, and that's going to create so much more value. It's going to create synergy, if anything.
100%.